In February of 2019, English teenager Tyler Peck and two friends were at the home of the former's mother, Holly Strawbridge, in Salcombe, Devon. On the first of the month, the woman drank beer alongside the teens, supplied them with strong drugs and sniffed aerosols with them. Strawbridge suffered from fibromyalgia and had been prescribed powerful painkillers such as Oromorph and gabapentin. She gave her son and his friends straps of the latter drug and also poured caps of liquid morphine into their beers. As they partied in the kitchen, Strawbridge's husband and their 4 children slept upstairs. Early the following day, one of the other teens found Peck unresponsive. It would emerge that he died in his sleep after overdosing on the cocktail of drugs and alcohol that his mother had given him. A post-mortem examination found that the levels of Oromorph and gabapentin in Peck's system were so high that either drug could have caused his death. He and the other teens had additionally consumed beer, peach snaps, codeine, and Valium. Peck reportedly lived to party. He'd been smoking, drinking hard liquor, and abusing drugs since his early preteens, and had overdosed twice in the past. Peck's mother not only encouraged him but had also sold him benzodiazepines on at least one occasion. For years, the woman had reportedly acted as her son's enabler and supplier, believing that drugs and alcohol were useful ways for him to cope with life. Strawbridge reportedly wanted to be a cool parent and to be popular with young people, and thus took a misguided pride that her home was a place where her underage son and his friends could freely consume dangerous substances. Peck had mostly grown up with his father and stepmother. In the last months of his life, he was allowed to live with Strawbridge, despite the concerns of social workers and his mental health worker. In the aftermath of her son's death, Strawbridge was arrested and charged with 2 counts of child cruelty and 2 counts of supplying a Class A drug, to which she pleaded not guilty. The teen who'd found Peck told the authorities, "Holly killed Tyler. She kept giving us these pills, strips of pills. She has overdone it this time." The teen also reported that he'd at one point seen Peck drink freely from a bottle of Oromorph. In her defense, Strawbridge claimed that her ex-husband had paid the teens to lie about her and that she'd only allowed them to drink beer on the night in question. The allegations against the teens were described as callous and unreasonable, while those against Peck's father were deemed gratuitous. A jury convicted Strawbridge on all counts, and in January of 2020 she was given a 10-year sentence. Number 6. Christina Robinson. On November the 5th of 2022, English woman Christina Robinson called the emergency services to her home in Ushaw Moor, County Durham, claiming that her son, Dwellanaya, had stopped breathing while eating a cheese bap. The boy was subsequently pronounced dead at the scene. Paramedics found that parts of Dwellanaya's body were heavily bandaged. The wrappings covered severe burns to roughly 20% of his skin surface, which should have been professionally treated but hadn't been. Further investigation revealed that the boy had succumbed to head trauma that he'd sustained from impact with the surface and or shaking. Dwellanaya exhibited dozens of other injuries that had been inflicted for some time. Christina followed the Black Hebrew Israelites, and she reportedly regarded corporally punishing her child as being in tune with the religious movement's teachings. As such, she subjected Dwellanaya to horrific abuse. Christina admitted to striking her son with a cane on the day of his death to punish him for messing around with his food. The woman claimed to have done so after watching a video scripture about chastisement. Dwellanaya had suffered burns to his legs, genitals, and buttocks after his mother had placed him in scalding water in another form of horrific punishment. Christina never got him medical treatment for his wounds and bandaged him at home, preventing a proper healing process and causing the boy to experience further agony. The 30-year-old was arrested for her son's murder but denied it and went to trial. Christina who'd never shown any emotion, neither when talking to officers at her home nor during the legal proceedings, was ultimately found guilty. She was jailed for life with a minimum of 25 years behind bars. Number 5. Lance Allen Koke, a Minnesota father, was charged with 2 counts of second-degree manslaughter and 2 counts of child endangerment in July of 2024 following an ATV crash that claimed the life of his daughter and that of her friend. The case against 54-year-old Afton man Lance Allen Koke stemmed from an incident that took place in the spring of 2023. On April the 22nd, Koke's daughter Savannah took the ATV out on his land while accompanied by her friend Alexis Gibson. Both girls were underage, and the vehicle, which had an 800cc engine, had a top speed of 100 miles per hour and was roughly 8 times more powerful than the ATVs recommended for children by the state. During the drive, Savannah lost control of the ATV and it overturned, crushing her and Alexis. In spite of resuscitation efforts, they were pronounced dead at the scene. Koke was considered criminally liable for allowing his daughter to operate the vehicle. He spoke of his charges to the Star Tribune and defended his actions, saying, "Us and the kids have hundreds of hours on 4-wheelers," adding that he'd had full trust in Savannah's abilities. The man described the crash as an unforeseen incident and a consequence of the vehicle's wheel getting caught in a divot. Updates on the matter indicated that Koke was due in Washington County District Court on August the 19th of 2024. Number 4. Nigel Maltby. By January of 2022, Englishman Nigel Maltby was out on bail and awaiting trial for twice assaulting his estranged wife, Karen. As part of his conditional release, Nigel was ordered not to make contact with his wife or turn up at her home in West Winch, Norfolk. On January the 23rd, the man got drunk and called his 19-year-old daughter, Lauren, reportedly threatening that he would force his way into the Leet Way residence. In spite of being more than double the drink-drive limit, Nigel got behind the wheel of his Mercedes and pulled up to the address. He then became involved in a heated argument with Lauren and her boyfriend, Arthur Marnell. Nigel, who was at the time in his mid-40s, threatened Arthur with a crowbar, but Lauren intervened to protect him. The move reportedly enraged her father, who got back in his car with the apparent intention of speeding off. However, in the moments that followed, he backed into Lauren and ran her over. Nigel paused briefly before he put the Mercedes in drive and smashed into the teen again, inflicting devastating injuries. He then stopped to pick her up, bundled her into the vehicle's passenger side footwell, and drove to the store where Karen worked. Nigel called his wife on the way, telling her, "I will bring your daughter over. She's dead." Karen would recount feeling a sickness take grip of her as she saw Lauren crammed in the footwell. The woman told the court, "Seeing her in that position for me was worse than knowing she had been run over." Nigel then took his daughter to Queen Elizabeth's Hospital in Kings Lynn, where she was pronounced dead. A Home Office post-mortem examination established the cause as chest and abdominal injuries. Nigel was arrested and charged with Lauren's murder, but he denied it, claiming that he'd struck her with the car by accident. He was ultimately found guilty and jailed for life with a minimum of 22 years served. Number 3. Heather Shrock. A special needs boy was found wandering alone in a neighborhood near 6th and Jackson in Warsaw, Illinois, on the evening of May the 14th of 2024. The boy was spotted by a neighbor as he was trying to enter a residence and reported as being in an unsanitary condition. A 911 call was placed, and responding law enforcement discovered that his mother, 32-year-old Heather Shrock, wasn't home at the time. After taking protective custody of the boy, deputies investigated the address and concluded that it was unsuitable for children to reside in, but didn't elaborate on that statement. Shrock, a mother of 3, was employed at a local hospital and her social media activity indicated that she often took selfies in her work attire. Law enforcement went to her workplace and took the woman into custody for child endangerment and child abandonment. Shrock was released in the aftermath, but it remained unclear if the boy was returned to her, as the Department of Children and Family Services had become involved in the case. Today's topic was requested by GShit2598, No Good Uno, and Zeno SSJ for Hero. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Sharon Kennedy. On February the 25th of 2018, Marissa Kennedy was found dead at the home she shared with her mother, Sharon, and her stepfather, Julio Carrillo, in Stockton Springs, Maine. A medical examiner determined that the girl had suffered bleeding in the brain and a lacerated liver, in addition to exhibiting multiple old injuries. It would emerge that for months, Marissa had been subjected to daily beatings, dished out by Sharon and Julio as punishment for her acting out. The abusive parents were arrested for murder. During Sharon's police interview, she told the authorities we couldn't handle her anymore, yelling out, "I didn't mean to hurt her, to kill her," and repeatedly saying, "I should have stopped." The 34-year-old admitted to routinely hitting her daughter dozens of times with a belt and karate chopping her in the ribs, while Julio kicked her in the torso. In one incident, the man struck Marissa with a mop handle so hard that he broke it on her. On the day that Marissa was found dead, the couple hadn't called 911 until she'd become unresponsive and was bleeding from the mouth and nose. Sharon and Julio had initially planned to cover up the murder, but the woman changed course and admitted to what she'd done upon realizing that her husband had already implicated her. 52-year-old Julio pleaded guilty to murder in 2019 and was jailed for 55 years. Sharon, who divorced Julio in the incident's wake, was given a 48-year sentence for her role in her daughter's death. She appealed the conviction in 2021, arguing that her husband had abused her as well, and that her low IQ had enabled him to control and coerce her into violence. The fact that she'd confessed to the police was thus to be regarded as an extension of her ex's manipulation. The appeal was rejected by Maine's highest court. If you thought these parents weren't terrifying enough, wait until you see just how bad mothers and their daughters can get. We've lined up our previous release when mums and daughters go wrong together right after number 1. Number 1. Robert Kelly. On May the 9th of 2011, Michigan man Robert Kelly was at his Oxford home with his 20-year-old daughter Megan. At some point in the night, Kelly, a licensed psychologist and therapist, got a baseball bat and walked into his daughter's bedroom. As Megan slept, Kelly brutally beat her with the bat, bashing her head and inflicting devastating injuries. He then walked to an Oxford police station and confessed the attack. Megan was found bleeding and unconscious, with doctors subsequently describing her injuries as being among the worst they had ever seen. Her maternal aunt, Sandra Bucklin, reported that medical staff compared the damage to her brain to a cracked egg. The young woman fell into a coma in the attack's wake and died on July the 27th when she was taken off life support. Kelly was deemed competent to stand trial but provided no reason for why he'd bludgeoned his daughter to death. He wasn't intoxicated nor in the throes of a mental health episode at the time of the attack. Bucklin couldn't offer any insight in that regard either, as she knew Kelly to be the voice of reason in the family, particularly due to his lengthy experience as a mental health professional. Bucklin described Megan as daddy's little girl, saying that she always wanted to make him proud. The 20-year-old had rejected offers from out-of-state colleges and opted for Oakland University so that she could stay with her father. Kelly was charged with first-degree premeditated murder but admitted second-degree murder under a plea deal. His defense attorney characterized the murder case as the strangest he'd ever worked. The sentencing judge was equally puzzled as Kelly told the court that he simply didn't know why he'd killed his daughter. 53-year-old Kelly said, "I wish I could understand what happened that day. This is probably the worst day of my life. I truly am sorry. he was handed a sentence of 20 to 30 years in prison. Number 9. Lillian Shoemaker and Rachel Dungan. Mississippi mother Rachel Dungan and her daughter Lillian Shoemaker were arrested while driving through Alabama, allegedly fleeing from justice after shooting the latter's boyfriend. The victim's name was not revealed to the media, but Jackson County Sheriff Mike Ezrell reported that 20-year-old Shoemaker had been at the man's house leading up to when the shooting occurred. Dungan, aged 38, picked her daughter up on the weekend of August the 13th of 2019, at which point the boyfriend allegedly attempted to follow them down the road. That's when Dungan began shooting at his car, inflicting non-fatal injuries on the victim. The mother-daughter duo were both charged with aggravated assault and were expected to be extradited back to Mississippi. Number 8. Lauren Victoria Alvarez and Tamara Ray Buck. 19-year-old Lauren Victoria Alvarez and her mother, 55-year-old Tamara Ray Buck, were arrested on September the 9th of 2020, whereupon they faced charges of second-degree battery. Buck and Alvarez, who were residents of Garland County, Arkansas, allegedly used a pipe that would usually be used to consume illegal substances to burn a disabled woman back in May of that same year. The victim, who was believed to be the daughter of one of Buck's ex-boyfriends, hadn't come forward with the accusations against her alleged attackers until June. She reportedly told police officers that during the course of the incident, the mother-daughter duo had taken turns holding her down on the bed, and that she'd received more than 7 burns to her chest and shoulders. Detectives handling the case indicating that they'd personally seen the injuries inflicted on the victim, who in the interest of privacy remained unidentified to the press in the aftermath. Both Alvarez and Buck were released on bail following their arrest, and as of September of 2020, no further information regarding court procedures had been released. Number 7. Cheryl and Jasmine Wright. On the night of October the 15th of 2021, Washington woman Cheryl Wright of Kentlands stabbed her boyfriend, Daniel Thompson, with the help of her daughter, Jasmine. As was detailed in subsequent reports on the matter, the victim had been 19 years older than his girlfriend-turned-attacker, who was 49 at the time. In the wake of the incident, Thompson was brought to the hospital for emergency treatment but ultimately succumbed to his injuries 2 days later. Although neither Wright nor her 31-year-old daughter provided police with particularly comprehensive accounts of the night in question, the detectives in charge of the case indicated that the suspects had gotten into an argument with Thompson before launching their attack on him. The police requested that anyone with information about the incident get in contact with Kentlands authorities. As of the case's latest updates, it had been reported that the Wrights had been charged with first and second-degree murder, but that a trial date hadn't yet been decided. Number 6. Tina Frey and Victoria Brimmer. Tina Frey and Victoria Brimmer, a mother and daughter from Lena, Louisiana, who worked together as dog trainers, were arrested and charged with aggravated cruelty to animals on August the 18th of 2022. Together, the pair owned Cypress Arrow Kennel and Canine Academy, where they reportedly trained dogs in addition to coaching other prospective instructors to conduct their own animal training. Police were contacted about the women after a video showing Frey, 52, and her 21-year-old daughter repeatedly striking a cane corso with a riding crop was uploaded to Facebook. Once authorities reviewed the shocking footage, both Frey and Brimmer were taken into police custody. The trainer's lawyer, Brad Drell, claimed that his clients were innocent, indicating that they were respected animal experts who were utilizing methods that were well established within the dog training profession. He further explained that although the video might look disturbing to the uninformed viewer, Frey had only acted in accordance with her experience with Corso dogs, which are known to be violent when she'd handled the animal so roughly. The abused dog in question reportedly had behavioral issues, and the trainers had been attempting to stop it from biting at its leash when the video was recorded. The presiding judge set a $10,000 bond, and both women were released pending their case's court proceedings. Number 5. Maria Turan and Camilleurgiles. Between 2011 and 2013, Maria Turan and her daughter Camilleurgiles allegedly injected clients with non-FDA approved Russian gel fillers at their medical spa in Houston, Texas. Although 50-year-old Turan wasn't a certified doctor, several patients who spoke to authorities during the ensuing investigation told detectives that she'd claimed to be one prior to treating them. A number of victims came forward, including an unidentified man who'd paid $3,100 for cosmetic enhancements to his buttocks, to which he reportedly developed a bad reaction, which consequently forced him to undergo further intensive medical procedures. In the aftermath of their arrests, Turan and Ergiles were charged with practicing medicine without a license, as well as delivering dangerous substances. Number 4. Lashuna and Abriana Taylor. In the late summer of 2022, Lashuna Taylor, aged 41, and her daughter, 19-year-old Abriana, faced several criminal charges, including aggravated robbery, contributing to the delinquency of a minor, intentionally evading arrest in an automobile, and child endangerment. The women from Memphis, Tennessee had reportedly enlisted 2 teenagers to aid them in their crime spree, which started at 2 p.m. on August the 7th. Police responded to several emergency calls, including a laundromat owner who had been shot in the arm and multiple men who'd been robbed at gunpoint. Witnesses described seeing 2 women fleeing the scene in a Hyundai Sonata before their teenaged accomplices jumped into a nearby canal. Once police tracked down the car in question, though, only Abriana remained inside. She'd led cops on a wild chase that culminated with her rear-ending a truck, leaving her own vehicle disabled. The teen was arrested on the spot, while her young associates were captured about an hour later, and Lashuna shortly after that. As of the case's most recent updates, the suspects' trial dates hadn't yet been determined. Number 3. Kay and Kimberly Morrison. In early January of 2022, Kay Morrison allegedly murdered her ex-husband, Kenneth, with the aid of their shared adult daughter, Kimberly. The victim wasn't officially reported as missing until March, when his concerned son contacted the police in Nez Perce County, Idaho, to report that his father hadn't been seen for about 2 months. While conducting interviews with the victim's family, an investigator reportedly noticed that 81-year-old Kay had been referring to her ex-husband in the past tense, and consequently grew suspicious that she might know more than she was letting on. The authorities subsequently obtained search warrants for Kay's phone and text messages, as well as those of the couple's daughter, Kimberly. Joe Storms, the detective in charge of the investigation, later reported that it had been evident by the content of the messages that both women were planning in concert with one another to poison Kenneth Morrison with prescription medication without his knowledge. During an interrogation conducted after her ensuing arrest, Kimberly told the police that her mother had been spiking her father's tea with lorazepam for years, but that she'd begun increasing the dosage near the end of 2021. Meanwhile, Kay allegedly confessed to placing a bag over her former husband's head after he'd fainted from the drugs she'd given him, which blocked his airways and ultimately led to his death. Presiding Judge Karen Subert set a $1 million bond for each defendant, and a court hearing was scheduled to begin toward the end of 2022. Number 2. Heidi Marie Littlefield and Logan Marie Runion. On January the 14th of 2021, Francis Kelly texted his estranged girlfriend, Heidi Marie Littlefield, accusing her of spiking his oatmeal. Apparently, it wasn't the first time he suspected her of poisoning his meals during the course of the bitter child custody battle in which they'd been embroiled. The following day, Kelly was found dead in his Indiana apartment by the mother of another one of his children. Detectives working the case discovered the damning text exchanges between the victim and his ex, one of which read, "You were in my fridge last night, and it tasted funny after a couple of bites. And now I am lightheaded." The autopsy revealed he had been dosed with fentanyl before being strangled with his favorite tie. 41-year-old Littlefield was initially the only suspect, but after the police began interviewing friends and family members, the woman's 22-year-old daughter Logan Marie Runion and her 29-year-old boyfriend Robert James Walker were also arrested in connection to the crime. Allegedly, one of Littlefield's former partners informed detectives that she'd admitted to paying her daughter's boyfriend $2,500 to find someone who'd commit Kelly's murder. Runion ultimately agreed to testify against her mother in exchange for a reduced sentence of 26 years. She claimed that she and her boyfriend had actually used the $2,500 to acquire illegal substances, as well as pay for clothes, and had never truly intended to murder Kelly. In May of 2021, Walker, who admitted to sneaking into the victim's apartment with Littlefield after the drugs had taken effect, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit murder and was sent to prison for 10 years as part of a plea bargain. The man placed the entirety of the blame onto Littlefield, stating that when he refused to snap Kelly's neck as she requested, she'd used the tie to end her ex's life herself. On August the 23rd of 2022, Littlefield was found guilty of murder, as well as several other felony charges, and her sentencing was set for October of that same year. Number 1. Denise and Latoya Gay. A mother and daughter duo from Henrico County, Virginia, conspired to kill 19-year-old Martre Coles on March the 12th of 2017. Denise Gay, aged 49, had been dating Coles' father for several years, during which they reportedly resided with each other's children. While living with the Coles family, Gay's daughter Latoya and her teenage sister had a history of aggression against the young man they'd eventually plot to murder. After Coles had been granted an interview as part of his efforts to get into an arts college, he enlisted Gay's help to create a plaster mask, which was one of the requirements mentioned in the admittance letter. Instead of rendering aid as the young man had requested, Gay and her eldest daughter began suffocating him. Coles struggled, prompting the mother to sit directly on top of him and apply plaster to his face until he eventually died of asphyxiation. The victim was reported missing shortly thereafter, and an investigation into his whereabouts was subsequently launched. About 2 weeks later, detectives discovered Coles' body inside a plastic container near the two families' shared home. Lime was also discovered near the teen's corpse, which had been used in an alleged attempt to destroy evidence. Police set up a hidden camera at the site, hoping to capture the culprit returning to the burial scene. Gay ended up on the resulting recording, searching for Coles' body, which had already been removed by the authorities. The woman was arrested and her home was searched, whereupon evidence was found linking the mother and daughter to the crime. Investigators also uncovered text messages in which Gay and Latoya had discussed changing the location of the body. Information discovered in the former's computer revealed that she'd faked the victim's college admittance letters, as well as the plaster mask requirement, to get him in a vulnerable situation that would allow them to carry out his killing. Although the mother and daughter were both found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, the jury was hung when it came to the charges of murder in the first degree, and a mistrial was thus declared in December of 2017. The women were subsequently tried separately, which led to Latoya receiving 30 years in prison for the crime, while her mother was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Thanks for watching. If you could pass on a single message to your 10-year-old self, what would it be? Let us know in the comments section below.